Hey guys, it's Meredith and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about all of the books I read in January as well as all of the books that I'm hoping to get to in February. So total I read 6 books in January, which is pretty average for me. It wasn't an excellent reading month, but it wasn't anything terrible. I read some really great books in the month of January. Starting off, I read From Blood and Ash from Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was a Fanrow book club pick, which if you don't know, the Fanrow book club is a book club run by my friend Zahar, and she picks some really great fantasy romance reads. I am not super well versed in fantasy, and so I've had a really fun time reading some of the picks for that book club. That being said, I did end up rating this a 3.5 star. I did enjoy it overall, but I was really confused in the beginning. I felt like it almost felt slow because I was just having a hard time following some things and completely understanding the world. But I was eventually able to catch on, which was nice. So this book follows Poppy. She is the maiden, and this basically means that she has a bunch of strict rules that she has to follow in order to be found worthy by the gods for the ascension. However, Poppy is kind of a rebellious character. She just doesn't really want to follow these rules, and she kind of likes to test her limits. So she learned to fight, which she wasn't supposed to do, and she visits these clubs that she's not supposed to go to, and at one of these clubs she meets a man named Hawk, who eventually we find out it becomes one of her bodyguards. So a lot kind of goes on in this book that I don't really think I can say because it will get into some spoilers, but one thing I will say is that although a lot goes on, it is a thick book, and I do not think it needed to be this long. It dragged on, it felt a little repetitive at some points, and I think that's why it knocked down a few stars for me. I did really like Poppy's character. I thought she was a really strong main character, and I did like reading about, you know, her questioning being the maiden and the people in charge and all of that. I really did enjoy that side. However, I just, like I said, it was a little slow and repetitive at some points, and I also did end up guessing the big plot twist. I don't know, to me I just kind of saw it coming. It seemed too obvious. Like I was questioning things, and that ended up being the big plot twist, which was a little disappointing because I saw it coming. So I was kind of hoping it would be something else. And this being the first book that I did finish this year, I don't really remember a ton from it. Like there wasn't a ton in here that was super memorable for me, which is disappointing. There are more books in the series. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head how many, but I mean, they're all about this long. So I would be interested in continuing with the series since I know a lot of people love it, but I have heard that the other books get a little slower and more boring. And so if I already found this one boring, I'm kind of questioning, you know, whether or not I would personally enjoy it. But yeah, so those were kind of my thoughts on that one. Also, another thing I will say is that I see all the time on like TikTok and everything how spicy this book is and how people were so taken aback by that, and I just didn't get that from this book. I mean, there definitely are some spicy scenes and there's, you know, a romance in here, but that's not the majority of the book. I don't think the majority of the book is a romance, and I don't know why. I was just, from people's reviews, I was kind of expecting that. So that didn't knock anything off for me at all, but I was just surprised that so many people consider this a very spicy book when I didn't really get that. Next up is a book I don't own, but it is The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. I ended up rating this a 4.25 stars. I didn't realize this when starting it, but this is a Jane Eyre retelling, and I picked it up on a whim. I did not know that until I finished it and started reading reviews. And I kind of wish I would have known ahead of time, because I don't know if I would have picked it up. I probably would have wanted to read Jane Eyre first because I haven't read it, and honestly I don't really know anything about it. So going into this book, I didn't know what to expect at all. In this book we follow Jane. She is a dog walker in this really rich neighborhood, and she is pretty much broke, and she meets a man in this neighborhood named Eddie, and they, you know, strike up a little bit of a romance. And Eddie's wife Bee had died in a boating accident, and so the whole town kind of knows about it. And as Jane and Eddie get closer, Jane starts questioning some things about it and wanting to know more about when she died and all of the events that took place there. And so it is just a really fun read. I read it really quickly since I hadn't read Jane Eyre. I didn't really know where the story was going. I thought it was altogether a really fun ride. I was very intrigued with the characters and everything that was happening with them. I would be really interested to read Jane Eyre and kind of compare the two, maybe read this one again just to see how the similarities are there, because like I said, I haven't read it and I don't really know what happens in it. So I am not too sure on the similarities of the story, but overall I did like The Wife Upstairs. It was a quick, fun, fast read. 4.25 is what I ended up giving it. Next up is what I would consider my most surprising read of January, and that was White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. This story follows Marigold, and she is moving into a new house with her family because her mom got a new job and they get to live in this house for free because of her job. Some weird things start happening in the house, and Marigold becomes a little suspicious of the things happening in the house and the neighborhood altogether, and so we just kind of follow her unraveling some things there. I think the thing that I was most hesitant about going into this book is that it is a YA book, and so I was kind of expecting, you know, some cheap scares, I don't know, just I wasn't expecting it to be as scary as it was, but I was genuinely scared in parts of this book. I was also not expecting the ending of the book. I don't know, altogether I was so impressed with this book. The only thing that did annoy me, and it didn't unfortunately knock down a full star for me, was our main character is very obsessed with smoking weed, which is fine, but it was just constantly brought up throughout the book, and I found it just a little annoying. So they would be doing something and her inner thoughts would be talking about how she just wanted to go smoke, or how she hasn't been high in X amount of days, and I was just getting really over it. I mean, it became a big part of her personality, which I just didn't think it needed to be, and so it got on my nerves. Every time she said it, I was just kind of rolling my eyes at it. But that was the only thing about the book that I didn't really enjoy. Everything else I really enjoyed, so I would pick this one up if it sounds at all interesting to you. Next up, I reread Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. I started rereading these back in the summer when my family and I went to Universal, and I was hoping to reread all of them. I didn't, so I decided to continue on with the reread in January, and I did read Order of the Phoenix, which is the 5th book and the longest book. I love this series. I ended up giving it 5 stars. Obviously, this series is just so comforting and cozy to me. I also started rereading it after I watched the 20th anniversary reunion with the cast, and so I was just in that headspace where I really wanted to jump back into the world, and that might have been why I enjoyed this so much more than I have in the past. Unpopular opinion, Order of the Phoenix is actually my least favorite book, or it used to be. I just always thought it was so slow and so unnecessarily long, and I don't know, Harry's really just kind of moody in it and that used to annoy me a lot. But during this reread, I actually ended up liking Order of the Phoenix more than I ever had previously. Anyway, regardless whether or not this is my least favorite, whatever, they're all 5 stars to me. Even my least favorite is a like most loved book of all time, so I loved it. Next, I read Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the first book in the Addicted series. I am planning to read all of the Addicted Calloway Sisters series. They are all behind me on my TBR cart, so I am hoping to read all of them and vlog the experience in spoiler vlogs because I really want to get all of my thoughts in real time on the books, and so they are spoiler filled vlogs, but I have one up on my channel now for Addicted to You. So this series has completely blown up on TikTok, and it is one that I constantly see rave reviews for. I don't think that I've ever really seen anyone say that they really disliked this series, and so I was so intrigued, and people talk so much about the characters and just how attached you get to them, and I'm a very character driven reader, so I was so excited to finally jump into the series. The Addicted series focuses on Lauren Hale and Lily Calloway. They are 2 friends and they both struggle with addictions, and they basically rely on each other to hide these addictions from their family, and we just kind of follow their journey in here. I don't want to give too much away about the series because I went in pretty blind. I just kind of knew that they were both addicts, and that's kind of all I knew. And so I think that that might be why I loved this book so much, is I just really didn't have tons of expectations for it. I knew people loved it, but I didn't know what to expect with it, and so that is how I would recommend going into this book. I really loved it. I tabbed the heck out of it, and I was just so surprised that I grew as attached to the characters as I did just in the first book. I know a lot of people say that the first book is kind of hard to get through, that it's a little slower, and I didn't find that at all. I was really attached to the characters. I was really rooting for them and wanting what was best for them, and I just really loved every second of reading this, and so I'm very excited to get to the other 9 books that I have here and see how I like the series overall, because we do get introductions to the other sisters and other characters, and in my opinion, I was already feeling attached to them and curious about where their story goes. So this was such a good one. I gave it 5 stars. If you have read it, go check out my spoiler filled reading vlog and we can discuss, because I loved it. Finally, the last book that I read in the month of January was Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This was her new release in January, and I was so excited to finally get to it. Finally, it just came out, but it was one of my most anticipated reads, and so I feel like I've been waiting forever for this book. I do have a spoiler-free vlog talking about this book, so if you have read it, haven't read it, I will link that in case you would like to see some of my thoughts on the book. But I did really love it. I gave it 5 stars. In this book, we follow Kenna when she is just getting out of prison. She served 5 years for a tragic mistake that she made, and while she was in prison, she did have a daughter, and so now that she's out, she is hoping to connect with her, and we just kind of follow her on that journey. This is an absolutely beautiful story about forgiveness and the impact that our decisions can make, and just so much. I was so surprised how much this book impacted me. I cried like 3 times. It was so good. I say this a million times in my vlog, but I don't have children, so I didn't know how much I would connect with Kenna's struggle and her emotions with not having that connection with her daughter. But I think that Colleen Hoover does such an amazing job of showing the reader just how hard this is for her and making you feel those emotions with her, and also showing you how this is impacting everyone in her kid's life. And I don't know, just there's really no bad guys or villains in this story. I think that everyone has their reasons for why they make the decisions that they do, and it's just, you're constantly conflicted throughout the whole book, you know, because you want what's best for the characters, but you also understand why other ones are making the decisions they do. So I'll leave it at that. It's probably very vague and confusing, but if you haven't picked this up, go read it. It was great. It was amazing. 5 stars. Colleen is she's a genius. My camera died mid-filming, so hopefully we're in the same kind of angle here. Now I'm going to go over my February TBR. I am awful at sticking to a TBR. I don't think I've ever really stuck to one before, but these are some of the books that I would really like to read in the month of February. So first off, number 1 pick is Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This is the Fanro book club pick for January and February. The live show will be in March, so I will put that information down below. I will actually be on the live show with Sahar and Brennan, and we will be discussing this book, so I definitely have to read this. This is like the must read. It's very thick, very long, so going to be the first one that I get to in the month of February. Also, I would really like to read Ricochet. This is the second book in the Addicted series. I'm also hoping to get to Addicted for Now. Since it is so short, I think I could probably speed through this one and then pick this one up. So these two I definitely want to get to, and I will be vlogging my reading experience with those. I also want to read The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I have just been putting this off, and I was adding some books to my TBR cart back here, and I looked at my shelf and I realized that I still haven't read this, and so I would love to read it in the month of February. And finally, I have 3 books that I am hoping to read for a romance reading vlog, and those books are A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole, Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren, and From Luke Off with Love by Mariana Zapata. I also think I mentioned that I am also in the middle of some books right now that I just did not finish because I would read half of it and then put it down in January. So I would like to finish those books, and the books that I'm currently in the middle of are The Inheritance Games, You Deserve Each Other, and This Time Next Year. So I'm hoping to read all of those in the month of February. I don't know how much I'll read. I actually am getting married in March, in case you don't know, so we've been doing a lot of planning and just a lot of stuff for that, and so I don't know how much reading I will be getting done, but we are going to try our hardest. Those are the books I read in January, the books I'm hoping to get to in February. Let me know down below if you have read any of the books mentioned, the ones that I read, the ones that I'm planning to read. Let me know if there are any on the TBR that you would put like number 1 I need to get to, because I would love to know. So thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. If you would like to see more bookish content from me, you can subscribe down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!